Hi, this is Nick, Mike 0 November Yankee Yankee down in the UK. Just showing off the magnetic loop that I've picked up from 2e0 Echo Romeo Oscar, Adrian from Northampton, also in the UK. And he's making these to order, and he's making the capacitor as well as the whole of the loop, 3D printing all the components. And the grey lump underneath is the motor, so this is a remote tuning capacitor, 12 volt supply, so that when it's finally fitted in my loft I'll be able to sit downstairs and tune it remotely. This particular loop is 8 bands, all the way from 40 meters to 10 meters, and also contains a very tiny switch on the side. Probably can't see that from where we are. You can actually have that replaced and have a remote relay to switch between the higher and lower bands, so that the capacitor brings in extra tuning where required. Or is it capacitance? One of those. Anyway, quick demonstration. As you can see, the size of the loop is about ½ a meter across. The radio in front is an ICOM 705 to give you an idea of scale. It's not connected to that loop at the moment. It's just tuned into the local repeater at Swindon, but we may use it in a minute. But we'll just show you how sensitive this loop is to tuning, and we've got it connected to a Nano VNA. So let's have a look at that screen. I should say that this is not the final position that this Magloop is going to have. This is the garage, currently surrounded by Wi-Fi, VDSL connections, computer monitors, and plenty of laptops. So it's not ideal conditions to pick up any of the HF bands. There's too much signal noise. Although we have done it, and I have used FT8 on 160 meters to decode. Not that this Magloop is really designed for 160. It will tune it. And plenty, and I couldn't see that there was an FT8 signal on the in the noise. I certainly couldn't hear it, but the laptop happily decoded it, which was surprising. But that was certainly outside the parameters of this loop, which is 40 meters to 10 meters. At the moment, we've got a Nano VNA here. Hopefully, you can see. Yep, I'll just get that in focus. There we go, and that's tuned on 10 meters, 28 megahertz, all okay across to 29.7 megahertz, centered on 28.5, which is kind of the center. And we've got a SWR of 1 to 1.6 in the middle, and the sides are 1 to 15, so we don't need to worry about those at the minute. But it does show you the narrow bandwidth pass, or band pass if you want to say, that we have. And if you are going to tune to the ends of the band, then you will need to retune the capacitor on the loop to match where you're tuning on the frequency. Now, Adrian at 2e0ero also produces and supplies with your Magloop a box for remote tuning, direction switch, so you can tune either ways. A large black button for doing fast tuning, and a white button for tuning very slow, obviously more delicate. And to give you an idea, if we just get the VNA in focus, if I just tap the fine tuning on 10 meters, we'll see that it can shift quite well, pretty much almost outside of the frequency outside the 10 meter band. So, and that's only a millimeter or a couple of millimeters. Here we go. I've just changed direction. We'll do it again. Short presses, and that's again to the other end of the band. So it's extremely fine tuning, very fine tuning on 10 meters, and that's. If you're using the fast tune, you can, if the VNA hasn't caught up on the display, you can tune right past the sweet spot, and so I would dap it until you've got it in place on what you need to do. And there we are. So what we'll do now, just to show you 40 meters, so we'll just set the VNA to 40 meter settings. And I do that on the laptop. It's a lot easier on the laptop than trying to fiddle around with that LCD screen. So just so you can see, let's focus on that. Set the sweep, 40 meters, set the band sweep, done, and close the window and sweep, and that's got it going. Now of course on the VNA, SWR is right up the top and nothing to show. We've gone from obviously one end of the Magloop to the other on what its capabilities are, so we'll need to flick the switch on the side, or if you had it remotely, flick the power on the relay to flick the other side. So we'll just flick that switch with my fingers, and there we go. So we're now tuning the lower bands, and in this case 40 meters. So we'll just flick there with the black, holding it down and watching the VNA scale and see if we get an SWR drop. There we are. We almost missed it. It's just off of the, it flicked off the screen and off the side. So we reverse direction and we can dap the black and just dab it. And as you can see, we're just bringing it back on, and we can dab it again. And we're within the frequency of 7 megahertz to 7.2, which is what that screen is showing. 7 to 7.2, the middle is at 7.1. So if I flick across, or if I now use the white button, which is smaller tuning or finer tuning, we can dap that, and as you can see, we can almost have that centered. And a little bit more, and one more. There we go, that's pretty good. SWR in the middle is showing 1 to 1.2, and on the edges of the band 1 to 9. But again, it shows that if you're tuning in at about 7.1 megahertz, you've got a lovely SWR. And if you're going to go across to 7.2, there we go, missed it off the screen then. The division middle is 7.1. 7.15, second division across, which would be showing about 1 to 3, 1 to 3.5, 1 to 3.5 at the minute. So yeah, if you're tuning up to 7.15 megahertz, then you will have to retune the Magloop as we're doing now, just dapping it across to get the SWR. There we are, next segment across. And if we're going towards the end of the band of 7.2, just keep tuning. And there we are, we're now SWR of 1 to 1.4 at 7.2 megahertz. And middle of the band is 1 to 9, which is no good. So you can see, I mean, 40 meters, that's the how shall we say, the band scope where it's showing maximum tuning is still not as wide as the band itself. So we'll just bring that back into the middle. There we go, I got bored, so I just press it a bit longer. It's all about practice. And we've overshot slightly, so we'll just flick the other way, and there we are. Pretty much in the middle. 7.1 megahertz is currently 1 to 1.3. We can probably get that down a little bit more. Yeah, overshot too much. Bit fiddly. Takes a little bit of time. Would be nice to see this automatic. I've seen photographs on Adrian's Facebook page showing stepper motors, and there is another project going on in the UK to read the CIV output from the ICOM radios, the 7300 and the 705, to drive a stepper motor so that we have absolute position on the capacitor on the Magloop, and that would be brilliant. It's in its infancy at the moment. I suspect from what I'm seeing in the amount of movement on the capacitor, we're going to need to gear down the stepper motor to be really super fine. It could mean that tuning from one end of the band to the other might take 30 seconds, but we'll have really good fine tuning. So there's 40 meters, that's 40 meters tuned, and as you saw at the beginning, we were 10 meters tuned as well. But yes, a lovely Magloop, very light, compact, certainly will take it outdoors, easy to put into the car and take up and put on the pole. No good in this room. There's too much information, interference, should I say, in the room with monitors and, as I say, ADSL and everything else coming in here. So I'll see if I can plug it into the ICOM and show something coming in on 40. But this is middle of the night, so there might not be anything on the band. As I said, FT8 on 160 surprisingly was working on receive. I didn't try transmit because the SWR was too high, but that was a big surprise to see us receiving anything at all, even though it was so much in the noise I couldn't actually see anything on the scope of the 705. Let's see if we can see that later on. Right, let's change cameras and see if we can get the 705 working. Okay, we're back, and I'll just turn I'll leave the volume as it is at the minute. We're showing the 40 meter band. We're in the center, and we did leave the Magloop centered at 7.1 megahertz, which is showing in the on the display. We can see from the display that we are getting a lot more signal through the middle, as shown by all the yellow in the waterfall, and that the signal to the sides isn't as strong, or certainly isn't getting through. And just to prove that, if I, with the fast tune the capacitor off tune or around, we will see that the waterfall will move as well to one of the sides, which is another way of tuning. You don't have to use a Nano VNA. If you set the waterfall, I've got it showing at max. Actually, I don't have it showing at maximum width. Let's just change the span to 500. There we go. So 500k either side of the waterfall. There we go. Let's put that down there. That's better. Now you can see that the Magloop has tuned, or is tuned, should I say, to 7.1. And if I now use the remote controller capacitor to tune it off, we'll see it move. There we are, and it's moved to off the grid. We'll retune that to see what we can get, and yeah, well, we're outside of the band scope already at 7.2, so I tuned it far too far for what was needed as a demonstration. So we'll just put that back to the middle of the band. I can't see any traffic, but as I say, where we are on the garage in a ground floor surrounded by a lot of electrical interference, it's unlikely that I'm going to see anything at this time of the night. It is 11 o'clock at night, so that's unlikely. But let's change direction, and we'll retune back to the middle of the band on 40 meters. And there you can see I'm just dapping it across, and that's pretty center. But if it wasn't just where I want it, I can use the white button and do much finer tuning, and I've probably overshot, to be honest. So let's go back the other way. And there we go. Maybe about there. So yes, that's tuning using the waterfall and spectrum scope of the ICOM 705. Could be the 7300, or any other radio it's got a scope. The other way that's demonstrated by people is to listen to the volume. Turn the volume up high, and of course if you go off I'll just put it up a bit. Let's see if we can get the volume to change. I'll turn the volume up high and then we'll tune it off of the 7.1 megahertz and see if we can notice a drop in the volume. So let's set the volume high first of all. And now let's tune off. Dropped a little bit, not much. I've got a lot of background noise here. So let's bring it back. In all honesty, there wasn't much difference. It's certainly easier to see it as a graphic display, and you can see if we're getting closer, you can definitely see that there is a peak to show that the Magloop is tuned at around 7.1 and a bit. But that'll give you an idea that yes, you can see the differences. Just to show a different frequency, 14. There we go. Got a bit of whistle on this one. Certainly not showing anything in tune, so we'll just spin around the capacitor and see if the Magloop will show us a peak coming into play. So I'm pressing the button down and we're just going to rotate all the way around, and here we go. That's certainly noticeable. What's also noticeable is the amount of bandwidth is wider than 40. Although saying that is probably because I should really know my bands. I don't know all the frequencies. What are we doing? Plus or 500 here. Let's come back. So I've reversed direction and I'm asking for, I'm doing fine tuning. Well, that's definitely gone off the scale. Let's reverse the other way. I think I muddled myself up there. Here we are. And looking at that band scope, it's a lot darker and noisier there than it is in that position. So we'll change direction. Just bring that back. Too far. As you can see, it's fine. You can overshoot quite easily. So it's a lot of practice messing around depending on your frequency. There we go. Almost. Something's there. That's pretty bang on. Not sure what it is. Could be tuned to FT8. Could be. Let's find out. Can't tell. Let's try another band so you can see some differences. Let's tune around. Still showing 500k width on the spectrum. And tuning the capacitor. See if we get a peak that's noticeable. Some of the frequencies, the peak is so tight that you can skip straight over it. There we are. You see that big yellow stripe? That's where we shot straight past the sweet spot. So we'll reverse direction, we'll use the fine button and we'll bring it back ever so slowly. If that's the frequency I wanted to work on. Overshot again, bring it back. You can of course change the span at this point, so there's no reason why you can just flip down to what should we say, 25k, and there's certainly some kind of signal. Can we get that in? That's off tune. Reverse. Let's get the dropping out. As you can see, we went through the noise, so reverse again. We can get that a little bit louder. There we go, a little bit noisier. Nice and noisy. And now if we can tune to that frequency on the edge. Not sure what we'll get. Who knows? My limited knowledge of HF bands isn't available to say what that noise is. I'm sure many of you will be able to turn around and say, oh yes, that's such and such a data, or some unusual transmission, but it's not something that I recognize. HF is very new to me, well, as new as this radio is, so it's just been a few days. But that was tuning the Magloop onto 18 meg. Seems to work quite well. As I say, not the best conditions to be doing this in. I want to get this in the loft, and I want to get a stepper motor on it, and extremely fine tuning that's programmable from the CIV output of the ICOM. But that's all in the future. Hope that helps. Hope that's not too confusing and terrible. Sorry about the wobbly video. Thanks very much. Mike 0 November Yankee Yankee. The name is Nick. You may find me on HF. Unlikely until I get this Magloop up into a position where I'd be comfortable to transmit. I feel there's little point in trying it in the garage at the minute. Thanks very much. 73 to you all.